Hey, this is Lyda Morehouse. I'm going to be reading to you from Tate Hallaway's Unjust Cause. I do that a lot. I don't know why I always choose to read Tate Hallaway's books, but I do. So today I'm going to read from this one. This is mine, actually, also Tate's. Second book in this series, the Alex Connor series. Wizard Tower Press put it out this year, and with any luck, I'll get my act together and there will be a third book in this trilogy. I would have to start it, so that's something I need to be working on. Okay, so what I'm going to do with this, I have a feeling lots of you have read this before. It did come out this year, or last year, 2020, the year we all loved so much. And so you may have missed it for reasons. And if you did, feel free to pick it up from Wizard Tower Press or anywhere fine books are sold. You can get this this is the trade paperback. There's a hardcover copy. You can get a Kindle version. You can actually get all sorts of e-publication versions because my publisher makes sure that it's available for everybody. So if you don't find what you're looking for on Amazon, just go right to the Wizard Tower Press. They're in Britain, but don't let that scare you. We live in an international culture nowadays, so your money will translate into pound sterling, and you can still buy this book, and it doesn't take that long to get it. Okay, that's a lot of a shill, so I hope this book is good. I'm going to read you a little bit of the beginning, just to give you a taste. I feel like people have probably heard me read the beginning before, because I've been reading a lot to promote it. But in case you haven't, I will give you a small taste. And then I'm going to read, I have my finger on where I'm going to read here, somewhere in the middle of chapter 3. And then that'll be it. Because, yay, I hope you're having a good MarsCon. Okay, bye. Okay, here's a little bit of chapter 1. Chapter 1. I poked Valentine in the chest. Valentine, we need to talk. The last few nights had been typical of South Dakota in the summer, hot and muggy, so I hadn't worn much to bed. I was tucked under a thin sheet in nothing more than a pair of Val's cast-off cotton boxers. The open window let in a meager breeze that smelled faintly of the dusty scent of wheat. Valentine cracked open one eye to look at me. When in human form, he was devastatingly handsome, at least to me. I guess other people saw him differently. Where my gaze lingered on Regal's strong features, others found the sharp lines of his face full of cold, calculating menace. I'd call his gray eyes smoldering, but they used words like penetrating, intense, and predatory. I was pretty sure we'd agree, though, that it was long and lean and had wonderfully hard, pale skin, the color reminiscent of moonlight, and deep, midnight black hair. At the moment, however, I could sort of understand where other people got their impressions. Silken hair disheveled by sleep hid most of his face, except for a singular, icy gray eye that stared at me, unblinking, like a lizard. A growly and deep voice snarled, "Talk? What topic of conversation could possibly be worth disturbing my slumber?" You know that thing about sleeping dragons? Yeah. Anyway, I ignored the menace in his tone. "Do you see anything wrong with me?" "You're awake." After a moment, he added coolly, "and talking." "Exactly," I agreed. "Do you know why I am awake?" I could tell by the way his lips pressed together that he held back a lot of responses that probably began with "because you live to annoy me," or some other similar insult. Instead, he finally blinked and sighed. "Perhaps you'll enlighten me." Sitting up, I showed him the problem. All over my chest, stuck by sweat, were coins. There was a quarter on my shoulder. A dime wedged itself into the hollow between my breasts. Pennies covered my arms. Something large, like a Mexican peso or a $50, poked me inside my thigh. Peeling the nickel off my neck, I held it out to him. "What is all this?" He snatched the nickel from my hand and shoved it under his pillow. "Mine," he said simply. So I'm going to leave it there. You get the idea. She's sleeping with a dragon, who is a hoarder, and this is a problem. The first one went really smoothly because I've read that beginning a lot. So I'm going to read somewhere I haven't read much before, so I may editorialize, stumble over words, and otherwise seem like a moron who didn't practice this. But I will tell you that I am slightly dyslexic, so I actually hate readings. I am probably one of the only authors I know that despises and is terrified of doing public readings because I always stumble over my own words and I feel like a moron. And sometimes I don't actually know how to pronounce words I've written, which I know you all can relate to. But so bear with me. This may be a little rough. I could re-record it, but like, what's the point in that? Like, that would make me look professional. We don't want that kind of crap. All right. So all you need to know is that at this point in chapter, well, I guess it's actually chapter 4. I thought this was chapter 3. Alex and Valentine have had their first sort of fight-ish thing. A body has fallen out of the sky, and she works as the county coroner in a small town. Well, it's not a small town, it's the capital. Sorry, Pierre. Pierre, South Dakota. And she's the coroner there in Hughes County, and it's an elected position, so she's actually not really good at the whole medical stuff. But, you know, something dropped out of the sky, and it seems pretty magical. At first, it looks like it might be a suicide, but it's clearly come from too far above. And, you know, Valentine can turn into a dragon. So she's a little concerned that her boyfriend might actually be the killer. And as was described in the first scene, it's not that she doesn't love him. It's just that, you know, he's a dragon. He's a legit dragon. So, okay. All right. I shouldn't have used the word legit. I'm 53 years old. Anyway, the point is he's sincerely a dragon, and that is my point. So here we go. All right. I stood half a room away from Valentine. Neither of us moved to close the distance. I knew I should be the one to make the effort. He'd done nothing wrong. I was 99% sure that he had not murdered Jane Doe, so really, it was on me to reassure him that things between us were cool. Luckily, my job provided the excuse. There were all the various boxes and such that I needed to take up to the mailroom to send off to various labs. Hey, I said, moving to gather some of them up. Could you help me take these upstairs? Scooping up the lion's share of the packages, he gave me a teasingly withering glance. So long as you're certain I won't frighten the staff. It was clearly meant to be a gentle poke, but the truth was there was some of the government building staff that moved out of the way when Valentine walked through the halls. Oh, they can put up with you. Put up with me, Valentine repeated thoughtfully, as he followed me out of the morgue door and up the back stairway. Am I to take it from that phrase that today is one of those days when you give me an exasperated sigh and tell me that you wished I were a normal boyfriend? I hadn't realized that was a thing I did. Although I did remember deciding that it would be nice to start up with Jack. Oh, they're in a poly relationship. For those times when Valentine needed to stretch his wings in the metaphorical and literal sense. But Jack is hardly normal, I pointed out. I wasn't actually thinking about Jack at this moment, Valentine said with a little grimace. Oh, oops. Time to change the subject fast. I think I met the guy who turned Devin. Devin is a vampire who's, you know, in the way of these things, also a werewolf. Okay. We were in the busier section of City Hall, so Valentine leaned in closer and dropped his voice. My ploy had clearly worked because his tone was excitedly conspiratorial. See, that's one of those horrible words. The master vampire? No, the werewolf, I said. I held on to the rest of the story while we dumped off the boxes with the harried mailroom clerk. I filled out the appropriate PO so that my office would get billed the postage. Once we were back in the stairwell, Valentine prompted, I thought I'd smell werewolf on you. He opened his mouth slightly, the way a cat does to get a scent, and then nodded, from the scent of brand new alpha. I ignored the weirdness of that moment. Yeah, and get this, I think Devin is his mate. They want to try to break up they want us to try to break Spencer's thrall. Wow, I could say that 15 times and still not get it right. So that Devin can ride off with his pack. Us? Valentine mused. I suspect they mean me. I'm fairly certain that the only way to end the spell like that is if the enthrall is dead. We hit the open sunlight and I winced from the sudden brightness. After the deep chill of the air conditioning, the heat felt almost good. I turned to look up at Valentine. Was he serious? You can't murder Spencer. So Spencer's not only her boss, but also the town's police chief, so that would be awkward. Technically, I'm more than capable. However, fairy don't taste terribly good. He shook his head, smacking his lips together as though finding the memory of something distasteful, and added, bitter. Acrid even. Not worth it. But more importantly, his mother would curse me for all eternity. I started walking towards my car. I kind of think the most important thing is that murder is illegal and, wrong. No, trust me, Valentine said, opening the car door for me after I'd de-weaponized it with Jack's beeper. The single most important thing is not to cross the Queen of Fairy. I waited until he lowered himself into the passenger seat before insisting, we really need to be clear on the murder is wrong idea. Do we? He paused while strapping himself in to give me a long, hard look. Alex, you do remember that I am an apex predator. Murder is called dinner. I started the car with a frown. Valentine's tone was light, but it wasn't a joke to me. Sensing my discomfort, he said, listen, I also understand that Spencer is your friend, and I really haven't eaten a human being in several centuries. I think the last person I devoured was during the Age of Discovery. As it happened, I didn't really want to be a discovery, and they were trespassing. I should have been safely hidden in Siberia, especially with everything going on anyway. They were Cossacks. His tone made it sound like he'd wished he'd eaten more of them. I didn't know what to say. When Valentine talked about the distant past like it was yesterday, I remembered that he was inhuman, a dragon. Those unlucky Cossacks, who probably deserved it, by the way, probably stumbled into Valentine's actual horde in a ice cave. He'd have probably been in dragon form, sleeping on a pile of gold, snow-white, leathery wings, long spiked tail wrapped around a scaly body. Why did I use so many S's there? I think just to baffle myself later when I had to read out loud. I'd only ever seen Valentine transform a couple of times. My impressions were big, very white, sharp teeth, black snake eyes, wings, and not much else. Big. Did I mention big, like defies the conservation of matter principle big? The rest was kind of a blur, however. This person I slept with, was a person I slept with. I guess this person I slept with. Wow. I don't think my brain really wanted to go there. Yeah, no, I could see that. Right? I write this, but I'm like, really? That's a good idea, Alex. After all, this was a man sitting in my car, staring in a desultory fashion out at the maple-lined streets. It was a very human posture he'd adopted, with an elbow braced against the edge of the interior car door and his face pressed into his knuckles. Anyway, you needn't worry, Valentine said. It's not as if I crave it or need to eat human flesh to survive. You could have ended up with a ghoul familiar. That would have been awkward at dinner parties. They can't even pretend to be human like I can. Pretend to be human. I needed to remember that phrase. Being human was only a pretense for Valentine. My stomach did a funny little uncoiling thing at that thought. You're awfully silent. Lifting his head from his hand, he gave me a look. What are you thinking? Despite the lack of traffic, I kept my eyes on the road. Our usual lunch place? He made a little disagreeing noise. All this talk of eating has made me hungry for a cow. Any chance we can go to that hipster tavern, the one with the good steaks? The good steaks. I almost said good snacks. I bet they have good snacks too, though. I'd been heading for our favorite Chinese buffet, but I signaled a turn to change directions. Pierre's Tap. Now, I want you to know, Pierre's Tap. I had initially wanted to name this Pierre's Pier because I just thought that's funny, but my editor wanted me to change it, and I don't know why. I guess Pierre's Pier was because nobody knows how to pronounce Pierre. They always think it's Pierre, and so I think she didn't get the joke of Pierre's Pier. But there you go. This is the only problem having a British editor. I mean, not that a lot of Americans don't know how to pronounce Pierre. I didn't for the longest time, so there's that. And it's it's just over there. So anyway, where were we? Page 63. That's it, he agreed, returning to stare out the window. We fell into a silence after that. Valentine wasn't much of a talker generally, but I tended to fill moments like this with idle chatter about the weather or the passing scenery. This drive, however, I was deep in my own thoughts, most of which continued to spiral around the realities of having a boyfriend who was a monster. I pulled into the restaurant parking lot. Gravel crunched under the tires. Anyway, Valentine sighed, apropos of his own thoughts. If I was going to eat anyone, it would be Robert. He boxed up my silver. Oh, this is, by the way, the person I live with, their roommate. All of it. And he put it in the garage. How am I expected to sleep? I unbuckled myself. You slept fine before you bought or acquired all that stuff. Yes, but now that I have it, it's mine and my hoard, and you must explain this to him. This is what started dragons eating people, you know. It's a rule. He sounded petulant, but his eyes glittered with a watery silver gray dragon. Oh, well, I guess that's where I was going. Silvery gray dragon-like. Do not take things that I have hoarded. Not one solitary coin, not one single speck of precious dust that forms from so many jewels rubbing together. None of it. It belongs to me. It is mine. We got out, and I leaned my full body on the car, my head resting on the roof, listening to Valentine's rant. I'll talk to Robert. Valentine shot me the same look that Robert had given me earlier, the one that said, I'll believe it when I see it. Very well, but mark my words, Alexander Connor. I will gnaw his bones to a pulp if he touches my things again. We really needed to get our own place, like yesterday. Closing my eyes, I thumped my face lightly on the car roof, feeling done with this whole weird conversation. Okay. Other people had roommates that argued over whose turns it was to do the dishes. I wanted to be other people right now. There you go. I think that's a good spot. All right. I hope you enjoyed it. Just as the clock chimes. See, that's some kind of sign. Thanks, Grandma. The oldest clock in the history of ever. All right. Okay, I hope everybody's having a good MarsCon. Talk to y'all later. Bye.